Welcome to the Thrive TV show with Lauren Parsons, helping you boost your health, energy, and productivity.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of Thrive TV. My name is Lauren Parsons, Wellbeing Specialist, and today I am joined by Dr. Cam McDonald. Hi, Cam.
G'day, Lauren. Great to be here with you.
Yeah, fantastic. So Cam is the CEO and the lead educator at PH360, and today we are talking about leveling up with your genetic natural strengths. So this is going to be relevant for you no matter where you are in the world, what age or shape or size you are. Cam's going to talk about how we can understand the genetic and natural basis for our strengths. Also, to help you understand the importance of leaning into your strengths as the fastest way to progress and create better health for you, and how to be aware of others' natural strengths so that you can better communicate and collaborate from work to family. So it's great to have you here, Cam. Before we get into talking about strengths, I just wanted to ask you our traditional this and that question so that people can get to know you a little more. Is that okay?
Perfect. Let's do it.
Okay, so number one is spots or stripes?
Stripes.
Stripes,
definitely.
Okay, stripes, nice. Would you rather have a live-in massage therapist or a live-in chef?
Ooh, live-in chef.
Live-in chef, okay,
Oh,
nice.
gee, that's a tough one. I may need to consider that a little bit more. But no, chef, definitely chef, yeah.
Chef, okay, nice. Rome or Paris?
Paris.
Paris, nice. Batman or Superman?
Oh, Superman, every time, no doubt. Yep.
Okay, perfect. Fresh salad or hot vegetables?
Oh, hot vegetables, and there's genetic reasons for that.
Okay, we'll hear more about that.
Yep.
Would you rather be a dragon or a unicorn?
Oh, that's good. Dragon, definitely. Yeah.
Okay, dragon. All right. Famous musician or a famous actor?
Musician.
And on the musician front, Justin Bieber or Ed Sheeran?
Ed Sheeran.
Yeah, I'm there too. And lastly, introvert or extrovert?
Strategic avert. Obviously I get a lot of time. When I get time by myself, I recharge. But I love the interaction as well when it has good purpose behind it.
Yes, I think I'm a bit like that too. Yeah, some of a blend. Yeah, that's great. Fantastic. So I'll just tell you a little more about Cam. Cam spent the last decade furthering his knowledge and skills so as to promote health in a way that ensures that everyone does the best thing for their unique body. So Dr. Cam blends his background as a dietitian, exercise physiologist with his long-standing personal interest in health and his passion for understanding the latest research in genetics and environmental influence on health. He teaches people from medical doctors through to health enthused members of the public, and his engaging style and the incredible science which he will share with us today will change the lens through which you look at your own health and the health of others. So Cam, tell us, how did you first get started doing what you're doing now?
So it was back at high school. I love sports, so I ended up doing health and sports science, which is what a lot of kids do, but got really, really passionate about reversing diabetes by the third year. And so in my undergrad, I got really interested in that, and because exercise has such a great influence on it. And then I decided if I want to reverse this diabetes thing, I need to do dietetics. So I went and did my Masters of Dietetics and Nutrition and learned a heap about physiology, and then started working in cardiac rehab and both physical and nutritional, and got really interested in the interaction between stress in people's bodies and how it reduces their lean body mass, but also increases their heart disease risk. And so I ended up doing my PhD in omega-3 and exercise in a population of breast cancer survivors. And so to understand how that was influencing their body, and started working in practice at the same time as well in private clinical practice. And I was still on this hunt to sort of solve the diabetes dilemma.
Wow.
And essentially I was noticing that people just weren't responding. I was giving them the guidelines and giving them, the best recommendations for the general population, and it just wasn't working for a lot of people. And so I started looking into genetics, and then epigenetics, which is gene expression. Came across the CEO serendipitously of PH360, and they'd been working for the previous 15 years on the first ever gene expression measurement sort of platform. And so for the last 5 years, I've seen over 500 clients using their fully personalized profiles. And now, just 3 weeks ago, there was a person who essentially halved his diabetes risk in 8 weeks. He was the most extreme diabetic I'd ever met. And he's halfway back to baseline in 8 weeks. And this is just understanding what's right for his body. And so it's been real full circle from being really interested in just sports and stuff to really wanting to prevent and really fix a problem, to finding out that it's not the problem, it's not the disease that's the problem, it's the environment around that specific person. And so now that I've had a lot of experience in that space and taught a lot of people about it, it's very, very clear as to how different we all are and that we actually need something different as well. So that's me up until this point, and there's lots of really exciting things happening in this space.
That's fantastic. Yes, and I totally am on that crusade with you to see diabetes steps reversed, because it is possible. So that's exciting. So you talk a lot about natural strength. So how are natural strengths actually built into the body?
Yeah, this is really fascinating. So we often talk about our natural strengths like, I think I'm, good at running, or I think I'm, a caring person, but often we don't really know where they come from. And essentially when you're in embryological stage, that's, when you're only around about 64 cells in your mother's womb, there's a lot of decisions that are being made about how your body is going to develop, what hormones are going to be dominant, which organs are going to be bigger or smaller, and how they're going to function as well. And when those decisions are made, they essentially set the trajectory for your growth. And it changes the way by the time you're 18, we see people with completely different sizes and shapes of their bodies. And the decisions around the size and shape of their body, particularly their skeletal system, is actually decided back in that stage of embryology. So what this means is that let's say someone, for example, has, and this is what we call the activator has slightly more testosterone and slightly more adrenaline running through their system their whole life. And so what happens as they develop, the testosterone actually makes their femur a little bit shorter, because testosterone caps the growth of the femur. And so they end up with a slightly shorter body with a longer trunk. So their physical change actually occurs based on their hormones, but then it also influences how their brain works as well. So if we've got a body that has been developing with higher amounts of testosterone and adrenaline their whole life, testosterone is a really competitive hormone, and adrenaline is a real, let's get into action, let's take a risk, let's do something that's a little bit unknown. They are going to be searching for that in their life. They're going to be searching for a bit of competition. They're going to be searching to take action. And it's something that they're going to be really, really good at. And their whole body compensates essentially to make them ready for that as well. And so when we look at this in an exercise setting, for example, that body with its shorter femurs and longer trunk has excellent agility. It also has muscle physiology that is more attuned essentially to high intensity exercise, high intensity interval training as well. It really thrives in the explosive, competitive nature of that exercise. And it also has a brain that really goes for that as well. And so when we start looking at that body and thinking, what is this body designed for? We actually start seeing that if you've got a company, you want this person to sort of take charge and have a crack at things first, because they love the idea of stepping into the unknown. The other thing about activators as well is that they don't like following rules so much. And people are always a combination of various health types, but the activator, if they see a rule, they'll want to break it just naturally, instinctively, they'll want to break it. And this is essentially a strength of lateral thinking, because if you're thinking laterally and doing something that's slightly unknown, then it makes it exciting, which means you get testosterone and adrenaline, which makes them feel like they're now home. Whereas
so
you've
they're
got
naturally innovators, and they come up with new ideas, and they're creative.
Exactly.
And how many different profiles and types are there on your profiling tool?
6 major types. And this is within each type, there's 60 different versions of those. And then within each of those, there's individual variation. But understanding the 6 actually give us a really good understanding of, the general patterns. And so when we're looking at this person, whether it be, if we so that's I guess that's the activator versus a guardian. The guardian body is the biggest, strongest, thickest body. They have the most amount of fat tissue, the most amount of muscle tissue, the most amount of bone tissue. They have just a general capacity to conserve. And the hormones that are relevant to them are prolactin and insulin. Prolactin is a breastfeeding hormone. It's, I'm going to give all my breast milk away and expect nothing in return. That's a pure selflessness. And so this body that grows with a dominance of prolactin running through their system, they actually prepare to protect everyone. So they get better at holding more mass and getting bigger and stronger. And there's a huge amount of protective instinct within their body because of the hormone that's developing this body as well. And so
that's for male and female, I'm assuming?
For male and female. They'll just go about it slightly differently. So the female will be super nurturing, like a big mama bear who just takes care of everyone, is constantly putting on food for people, is constantly inviting everyone around, all the kids from the neighborhood, to make sure they're all fed and well rested, and they're tireless. They're doing all of the cooking, the cleaning, everything to do with the kids, and they just seem to be able to do it for years on end without fatiguing. Whereas the male, with that bit of extra testosterone, they'll just be incredibly powerfully protective, like an angry bear, essentially. It's a very masculine, protective nature. They can be very steady and very still in their mind, but they've still got that incredible generosity that comes along with that body as well. And so the biology shaped the way this body forms, and it also shapes the way the brain forms as well, and how it operates and what makes it feel normal. So when we look at their natural strengths, naturally we've got a body with more muscle, we've got a body with bigger, stronger bones. They can get tall, but their ability to lift heavy stuff is so far above and beyond anybody else, because they have everything built into their physiology that allows them to lift heavy. Versus the activator, they're really good at like CrossFit, which is lots of little things, lots of fast things, and for short periods of time. This body, big, strong limbs designed for big, strong strength. And then psychologically, they've got incredible resilience, as they do physiologically as well, because their body's preparing to protect the community, because that's what the hormones are telling this body to prepare for, is I've got to give and not receive. So I've got to conserve as much as I can. I've got to give as much as I can. And so their natural strengths are going to be in their ability to show compassion and care for people. Their ability is going to be one of absolute resilience, where they can just keep trucking and just keep going on this diesel engine, or where they can show an incredible sign of strength. So their natural strengths come physically and mentally through the hormones that they're involved with as they grow. And then the third type, which is, so we've got the top left, top right, and then the bottom, and then there's combinations of these three. So that the third type is the sensor, and that's the smallest, tiniest body. This is like a ballet dancer, very fine boned. And the way their body develops is it develops a very prominent nervous system, and doesn't put as much energy into the digestive organs or into the musculoskeletal system, so the muscle and the fat tissue. So they end up with a brain that's always on, and a body that doesn't have much muscle tissue, and often they have a sore gut, or like a digestive system that's disrupted because it's not as strong or is not as powerful as some of the other bodies. And so the reason when we come to natural strengths for this body, they are incredibly sensitive. They're able to sense everything in their surroundings very acutely, because they have the way their nervous system develops. They're not ready for a fight against the guardian. They're not ready for a fight against the more aggressive activator. They need to think their way out of trouble, because their body doesn't have the physicality to fight their way out of trouble. They're a ballet dancer against the grizzly bear. It's not even a competition. And so they're very dialed in. Their nervous system is heightened. They have a greater understanding of all of the data that they can collect from their environment. And this allows them to make their lists and essentially plan everything very specifically so that they can make the most logical decision. And so this body, its natural strength is in sensing what's going on around them. They're incredible empaths. They feel what's going on for people, even if they don't want to, because they're like an antenna wire with their nervous system. But also their brain is incredibly high-powered and very focused on detail. And so they'll be very good at logic and systems and processes. And this body can tend towards anxiety, because the way that they deal with stress is to think more, versus the activator. attacks more, and the guardian conserves more. And so these bodies, their strength for this particular body is their mind and the way they can navigate the world around them or understand the world around them with their greater sensory capacity and essentially plan their way out of trouble before it occurs. So they're the three major types, and it all comes from that embryological founding. And you can start to see as you logically draw that line out, well, this body is not designed for fighting. It's designed for beautiful, articulate, hand gestures and mind-body connection, which is exactly what ballet is, for example. And whereas a guardian, you see that like their body is designed for caring for people, for making sure they're nurturing, or it might be a nursing, it might be teaching, it might be looking after children, or it might be, if they're leaders, leading collectively. So this is where the biology, it's all coming as one system. It's not silos of science. And so that's one of the most fascinating things, is this biology actually tells us about the whole system, not just one piece of it.
I was just going to say, because it sounds as though it's taking lots of different models that are out there that listeners may be familiar with in terms of your personality profiling, communication styles and preferences, right through to body types and ectomorph and endomorph and mesomorph, and drawing that together. So looking at the genetic reasons that we develop physically and mentally and emotionally. And so you actually look at measuring that. I know we were talking before about measurement. How do you actually measure that? Like if a client comes to you, how do you measure these different types?
Well, this is the coolest thing about our practice and the coaches that we've trained around the world. You just need a tape measure and a Wi-Fi access. So if we have a really good understanding of how your bones have grown throughout your life, where you're depositing fat around your body, we can essentially say, well, this is the layer of the embryo that had more energy, and this is why your body has developed, and these are the hormones that have been involved with that growth as well. So we take 18 different measures around your body, like the size of your head is related to growth hormone, the length of your jaw is related to testosterone and growth hormone as well. All the way through your neck is a risk factor for diabetes, whereas skinnier wrists and arms is related to more ectomorphy. We have essentially measures all the way through your trunk and all the way through your legs as well to define your skeletal mass, because your skeleton develops over 18 years, but it essentially holds the impression of what happened embryologically and plays that out in a predictable trajectory as you develop. And so when you get to 18 years, it's actually very easy to measure those bony landmarks and understand what part of your embryo was actually more active and not. And then it tells us about those hormones as well. And then there's an extensive medical history that goes along with that as well, about your developmental milestones and various things about your lineage and genetic history and things like that.
And so how do you use that to benefit your clients? So someone comes along, you get to identify where they're at. What do you then do with that? How do you help them?
Yeah, so essentially, well, there's two parts. One is they get a lot of information through their interactive application. Like PH360 has an app called Shay, and when you put that data in, there's been 20,000 cases and 15 years of research that have gone into, okay, we now know that this person is an activator. They're on the 0 to 360 wheel, they're 135, and this 135 at this point in their life, with blue eyes and blonde hair and with pale skin, let's say, for example, we know that activator has this genetic heritage where they developed with this, which means they'll have these nutritional requirements, and it'll actually say, these are your specific vegetables and meats and fruits that you need to eat. This is exactly when you need to eat them. This is how you might want to cook them as well. There's 12,000 recipes that actually make that really functional. And then there's an exercise part to that as well, about exactly what time is ideal for your body to move to make the most of the hormonal variations that occur in your body. And then it even gives outputs into your basic, like how your brain is going to function throughout the day at work, how you can understand where your psyche is driven from. So it's an app and a platform that essentially provide all of that information. And then the second part of it is the coaching. So one of the problems with our industry is that we think knowledge is everything. If we just provide knowledge, everyone will take care of themselves. But it's for some people, you really need to provide a lot of support. And so it's coaching people through that information. So we need to change the mealtime of their breakfast from 6 a.m. to 8 a.m. because it's more optimal for them. And so we need to go about coaching that. And so this is a tool that updates when you remeasure. So if you move to a different country, or if you drop 20 kilos and your diabetes reverses, then you'll need now a completely different list of foods because your gene expression has changed as well. So it stays up to date with you wherever you are. And then the coaching is very supportive to make sure you can put it into practice, essentially.
Mm-hmm. And so we titled the session looking at leveling up with your genetic natural strength. So for people that are watching now that are going, oh, how can I level up? Is there any advice that you'd give to people that are listening in on the key things that your approach does?
Yeah, definitely. So probably one of the most important things to understand is elements of our body that we think are often weaknesses will often speak to our strengths. And then there's also this internal compass that a lot of people are disconnected from these days, but you will know it when you feel it. That when you do something that feels awesome, like when you do, like let's say that you're a sensor and you go along and start lifting really heavy weights with your tiny little bones and your bones start aching, this is not a sign of your body, oh, your body needs to do heavy weights all the time because it's not coping with it well. This is saying, maybe this isn't the best exercise for me. And then when they go and do a yoga class that calms their nervous system, it actually makes them feel a whole lot better and makes them feel a whole lot more in tune with their system as well. And so the first thing with understanding a weakness that may be maybe actually be talking to your strength, someone like an activator, and activators can be really fiery and they can be really direct and really blunt. And if they're not aware of that, then they can just really, they can insult people and people can feel bad about it if they're not really careful of how they talk. If people were to say, geez, I've got to stop that really spontaneous energy. I can't be direct and blunt like that. It's a bad thing that I've got this fire inside me. If they associate that fire with a negative, then it means when it comes to them attacking sport and when they're doing something that's absolutely passionate to them, they need that fire to just go and get up there. The fire in an uncontrolled sense and an unaware sense can definitely mean that you create a bit of damage in different places. But when you're aware of it and when you're understanding what does my body really respond like, how does it really respond well, you can start co-opting that strength too. And so if you find that, for example, a guardian finds that, I'm always giving and giving and giving, and I'm not receiving anything back. This is a time when you can say, well, my body is actually the most resilient. It's the strongest and it is designed to give. It's a natural thing for me to give. And the problem the guardians often experience is that they accumulate fat tissue quite easily and they judge themselves for it, thinking that they're not as worthy. That's a really common thing.
Mm-hmm. Because of our modern media and the perceptions that we get. I love that you're painting this amazing positive picture for people that may have thought, oh, I'm too skinny or oh, I'm too bulky, that actually it's just all of these different body types have real strengths.
That's exactly right. And the guardian, the reason why they're big is because they're protecting the community. All the censors who are in the magazines, they're only alive because a guardian fed them food during a famine in our past, and they have to be able to carry a little bit more strength in order to serve the purpose that they are. And what happens to their body when they get too light, they go into anxiety because their body's saying, I don't have enough for my family right now. I've got to put more weight on. I've got to feel heavier because heavy is safe, because heavy means my family is okay. And yet people get stuck in this paradigm of I'm heavy, so I'm bad. When in fact, my body is so strong, it's able to carry this weight around. Mm-hmm. The reason why I have this weight on is because my environment is a little bit stressed and I'm protecting everybody in my community with my fat stores right now. What about my environment is a little bit stressful and how can I remedy that? Because as soon as that stress goes away, the requirement for that fat tissue now drops as well, because guardians can be lean. We see the Rock. The Rock is a good example of a big guardian. And this is the understanding that if you understand the strength of a guardian, their strength is strength. And if you just focus on how much they can lift heavily and how much they can essentially endure, then they'll start creating this really great positive mindset around exactly the thing that they thought was their weakness, which was their ability to conserve, which is the same thing.
Mm-hmm. It's really intuitive, isn't it? It's very intuitive with what we see and logical. What interests me is the link between these physical dispositions and the physiological. So tell us more about the motivation and the communication and the psychology that goes with it.
Yeah, sure. Okay, so just running through the same three again. The activator, obviously you've got someone who has got a bit more testosterone and a bit more adrenaline. So if you're wanting to support and motivate that person, you need to put a challenge in front of them. And you need to put a short-term challenge in front of them, because when they go big. They inflame hard. And so if you keep that inflammation on with a 6-month goal, they're going to be devastated, because it's going to ruin their body having so much activity for 6 months, when if we break it up into month-long blocks of, we're going to tackle this challenge next, the last person did this, I wonder what you can do, that competition will inspire them to really go into action for the next month. And when it comes to communication, you need to know that activators are generally, when they experience an energy, like any kind of stress, it has to come out immediately. And so it'll be, there might be a relationship happening, and then the activator will just fire off and say, we'll just say something quite nasty, just like, oh, whatever, I don't love you anyway, or whatever it is. And then they'll walk away, and then they'll come back having expressed that energy, and they'll feel completely fine. And they didn't actually mean what they said. They just needed to get rid of the energy, if that makes sense. And if they know that, then they can temper themselves about what they say and how they say it. But if you know that, then you know that you don't have to, in the heat of battle, you don't need to take anything too seriously, and they just need to get rid of their energy, and then they can calm down again. So that's a little bit about the activator. And then the guardian is very much, if you're thinking about this body, it's a nurturing body that requires a lot more support. So this is the type of client that we actually spend every week with, and we make sure that they form some sort of community around their health. So they have engagement with 8, 9, 10 other people with the same predisposition potentially, who can just associate together. They turn up to the gym for the coffee afterwards with their friends. Like the gym is just a great middleman for the coffee, essentially. And so knowing that this body actually thrives with family around them, because that's who they're trying to protect. If you know that you've got to provide that community for them, or if you know that, if you've got a partner who's a guardian, making sure that you're constantly touching base with them and constantly supporting them, and not trying to create, growth through pain, but rather growth through pleasure and growth through connection. That will be really what creates a great environment for them. And as a communication style, they actually use more of their left temporal lobe when they do various tasks. And that's the listening without fixing part of your brain. Whereas the activator is the right temporal, which is listening to fix and problem solve. And so
which is
this will be
interesting, because typically we think of that as being a male-female thing as well, and again, it's pigeonholing, but generally men are there with their fix-it hammer, like, listen to the problem, I'm going to fix the problem, whereas women often will want just someone to listen to them. So it's interesting seeing that across these different styles as well.
That's right. And so you'll have variations of masculine and feminine within each of the types, but you still have very problem-solving activator women who do try and fix stuff. And more so than a guardian woman who just there and sits and listens. And whereas the male guardian might fix via protecting. They know that if they can fix a problem, they're protecting a person. So that's all right, I'll fix that. I'll fix your car. Like, I'll fix this problem so that I can protect you. It's a different motivation. And so, whereas the sensor, when it comes to communication or motivation, they're very much, if it makes sense, if the data adds up, then why would you do anything else? So their brain is very logical, and if I've got all of this data and this is the most sensible decision, well, of course I'll do that. And so their motivation comes through having enough information, because if they have enough information, then they can operate safely, because they don't have the capacity to take a risk like the activator or defend themselves physically like the guardian. They need all of the data. And so they'll often be a person that asks you for more specifics when you've given them some instructions, like, what do I do in this exact case, and this exact case, and this exact case? And then once they've got their list, they do everything religiously. Even if you don't tell them to stop, you'll turn up 3 years later, and if it still makes sense to them, they'll still be doing it because it makes sense to. And so their communication is often very deep. And so they like to get to the deep philosophy as something. They like exploring things one thing at a time. And essentially we talk to sensors a lot about this, and they say, my ultimate party is my one best friend, and we get to talk about one thing all night and just investigate that whole topic. Whereas activators will need some more variety. Guardians will just be happy putting on the meal for people. Sensors will want that cognitive connection. And so their communication will be very, very logical, very rational, very science-based, evidence-based, essentially, when they're communicating.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's great, Cam. I'm sure we could talk about this all day, but what you've already shared, I think, has given listeners some great ideas. They're probably starting to hear stories and situations either for themselves or their family and friends within it. And I think it's amazing, that power of when we understand more about ourselves and more about our loved ones, we can just create those closer connections, because we can, make allowance and understand, that's where they're coming from, and know that not everyone's going to be the same style as us. So I love it. It's just another layer of information and another lens to look at the world through. So if people want to follow up with you or find out more, where should they head to connect with you, Cam?
Yeah, great. Well, I think we'll pop the link bit.ly/ThrivePH360, and that essentially gives you you can actually go and get yourself measured up. There's a number of ways that you can do that. You can measure yourself at home. That'll just give you some information there, and you can have a search around that website for more information if you need it. That will allow you to understand what your type is, and it will give you all of that information that we spoke about. And then for health professionals, we have half-day, 6-week and ongoing courses that they can learn a lot more about, bring it into practice, and that's what we're doing with medical professionals right through to personal trainers, and have been for the last 4 years. We've got a really fantastic community that support both health enthused members of the population and also health professionals. Essentially, our mission is to end chronic disease and pain by the year 2050, and everything that we're doing across education, health and medicine, workplaces, parenting, everything is about understanding that people are unique and that they need something unique in order to be in their best health. And if you can understand yourself, you'll understand others with an incredible increase in compassion and understanding.
Mm-hmm. That's fantastic. And I'm just calculating ahead going, yes, this is going to happen in my lifetime. I'm loving that. So I congratulate you and spur you on in your mission. That's fantastic. So thank you to everyone that has joined us today. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Thrive TV. Go out and thrive, and we'll see you next time. Thanks, Cam.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you for listening to the Thrive TV Show with Lauren Parsons. Visit thrivetvshow.com to access the show notes and discover our fantastic bonus content. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next inspiring episode.